With WWE WrestleMania 41 being just 2 months away, it's safe to say the build hasn't been great so far. In this video, we're going to discuss exactly why does it not feel exactly quite right. Let's get into it. Now, first of all, I do think that there is rights to criticize WWE, but overall, we have to say in the last couple of years, the product has got a lot better overall under Triple H's reign compared to what Vince McMahon had. It's a much better viewing experience. They seem to care a little bit more about what the fans want, and although you may not agree with every decision they do make some ballsy and some good decisions, I think, overall. Now, with that being said, I think the major criticism I have of Triple H's reign is that sometimes he doesn't know when to stop, and what I mean by this is that his long storytelling builds that he has done for all his major stories are really good when they come off, but I think a lot of people forget the years and the months of pain that you have to go through to get to that moment. Now, I think overall long-term storytelling is really good, and I like how he puts little Easter eggs in of people sort of looking to fight each other and then they end up fighting each other a year later and they've already built that story there. But I do think in some moments it isn't necessarily needed. Now, I think a lot of stories can have shorter builds and still work very successfully, and sometimes it feels like in Triple H's reign that every single build is going to be a long term, and sometimes it just means you never get good stories with people with the belts. I think great examples of this are people like Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, even Gunther with the World Championship. They may have had one big story leading to them to win the belt, or realistically with Liv and Rhea having that rivalry for 8 to 9 months, it was a good rivalry to a certain extent. They had some good matches, it made sense with Dom, people did care about it, but I think it just went on too long. There was months and months and months where people just were kind of fed up with one of them beefing the other person. Liv Morgan was never allowed to have a title shot match which really meant anything other than Rhea Ripley, and they never built any other stories that really meant anything, which is a waste of the belt. And with Gunther, that is a great example. We wanted him to get the World Championship. He was the Intercontinental Champion for so long, and he's just kind of fought people, did the same shtick every time of I'm the ring general, I don't really care about you, you're a peasant, and then fought them and won, and it hasn't really felt like he's had any good stories, and it kind of just feels like WWE are trying to move into an era where the only big stories happen at WrestleMania or SummerSlam. Now, I think that is a real issue with Gunther specifically, but I do think that's an issue with the company as a whole. Cody Rhodes' belt itself hasn't been exactly brilliant in the last couple of years since he got it, because these rivalries aren't being built and these short-term rivalries just don't get the care that they need. Now, luckily, Cody is the big champion, he's the main guy of the company, and he's been able to have successful rivalries with people like Kevin Owens and Solo Sikoa, but that is because that is the big belt, and it kind of feels like Cody is getting to the point where he's beefing a lot of people and he's starting to get disagreements with it all. It kind of all ties in and makes sense. Now, it's definitely a good thing, the long-term planning, and I'm not saying it isn't, but I do think sometimes you need to let it go. I think sometimes people hold into the belts too long. I think sometimes that WrestleMania shouldn't be your payoff all times, because then it's kind of predictable. What is the point of watching half of the pay-per-views for the year? And I think that has led to this build being quite dire. Now, I will say that this definitely is continued from the Royal Rumble. I like the decision that Jey Uso got to win the belt. I think it's a very ballsy decision which deserves a lot of praise, because they've never done this in the past. But Jey Uso fighting Gunther isn't exactly that interesting fight we wanted to get from Royal Rumble. You know, they had a match in January where Gunther won. Gunther beat him a few years ago, obviously when he fought for the Intercontinental belt as well, and yes, you can build up to being the third one, but when he just had a fight in January at Saturday Night Live, it kind of doesn't really feel that special. It's like if Cody Rhodes was to fight Kevin Owens at WrestleMania right now, you've seen it all before, even though their matches are insane. And with the women's one, they didn't even build up for the women's Royal Rumble at all. It kind of just felt like Charlotte was coming back to win. She did come back and won, and her fighting Tiffany I don't really have an issue with. It's a new fight at least, but yet again, not really much has been built so far. They're both blonde and they both want the belt, and that's kind of it, and I want to see some more story arcs at least going into WrestleMania. Now, it is still early days. As much as it is 2 months in the time, we've still got the Elimination Chamber coming up in a couple of weeks, which is going to be a major deal. But with the rumours that John Cena is expected to win and fight Cody, in which I think he'll probably end up losing at WrestleMania, but you know, that match is cool, fair enough, we'll end up putting people like Drew and Damian against each other, which in my opinion is a very mid solid match, and Roman, Seth and CM Punk in a triple threat. Now these are all brilliant wrestlers and they all hate each other, so you can kind of build it in that way. However, these three are incredible people that should be having their dream one-on-one matches while we can have it. You know, CM Punk isn't getting any younger. We can't do this forever. I do think having them in a triple threat is a little bit of a waste, but I guess you can still build that as a massive match in a way, and I think I trust them three individually to build it to be a good match. But it does feel like the card needs a lot of padding out, and there's just a lot of stupidness going around. You know, people like Jacob Fatu is one of the people that is next up. I see so much potential and he is so great, and Roman has come back and said that he wants to make him his star, and he's been having rivalries with people like Braun Strowman, who in 2025 is just not that guy, unfortunately. Now this is very early and I don't want to be too pessimistic, so I will give it the opportunity, and I'm not going to go out of the way and be like, oh, I'm not going to watch WrestleMania, because I obviously will, because I do care and I will watch Elimination Chamber, but I just want to have some stories that can be built within 1 or 2 months and they are still meaning a lot. I feel like sometimes they only really mean a lot and we wait too much in the time in between the big events to actually get them big stories. I think of instance that Jay and Jimmy Uso rivalry, which was an absolute farce. Jimmy betrayed Jay at SummerSlam and then they didn't meet each other for 6 months because they moved brands so they could come back 6 months later and have that match where they just shuffled it in with a couple of weeks before WrestleMania, and then we all know how that WrestleMania match went in the end. So I just think that Triple H needs to probably have a little bit of a different perspective on how to build certain fights, but I do think with certain ones it's okay. Like I think Cody and John will kind of work itself out, and I think the main ones will, but obviously to build a brilliant WrestleMania we need a bigger card than that. I would also love to see some proper longevity women's stories. If we are building to this Io and Rhea, please do this at WrestleMania, not Elimination Chamber, because these two are so great. You know, if we do Kevin Owens and Sami 1 at Elimination Chamber and then they do a rematch at WrestleMania, that is fine. That's a big enough fight where you could have so many years of history where you can blow it off, but we just need more of that, and that's all I'm asking. Now overall in the comments, let me know what you guys think about the WrestleMania story so far and what stories have been letting you down. I know the Gunther and Jey Uso one online at least has been a bit of a letdown, and I think that match for me is kind of a letdown on paper, but I am happy for Jey to probably win the World Championship, and I'm hoping that he can be that sort of transitional champ that takes it into about SummerSlam and maybe loses to someone like CM Punk, so then we can elevate both belts really high. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.